The most powerful weapon you will ever possess does not rest in your hands, it does not lie in the money in your pockets, and it does not exist in the strength of your body. The most powerful weapon you will ever hold is the one hidden between your ears, your mind. Empires have been built with it. Fortunes have been forged through it. Wars have been won and lost because of it. And yet, the majority of people walk this earth like beggars, not because they lack opportunity, not because they lack resources, but because they have allowed the sharpest blade of their existence to rust in the sheath of idleness. Understand this truth. The mind is either your master or your slave. It will either lead you to greatness or drag you into the pit of mediocrity. A poorly trained mind is like a wild horse, full of power but dangerous, unpredictable, destructive. A ruthlessly trained mind, however, is a warhorse, disciplined, unshakable, a weapon guided with precision that can charge through the chaos of life and emerge victorious. Every leader you admire, every innovator who changed history, every billionaire who rose from nothing, did not begin with wealth or connections or privilege. They began with a trained mind. Think of Thomas Edison, a man who faced failure 1,000 times in his pursuit of light. He didn't succeed because of luck. He succeeded because he had trained his mind to see possibility where others only saw defeat. Think of Abraham Lincoln, born in a log cabin, besieged by loss, setback after setback, yet his mind refused to yield, refused to break. He trained it to endure, to keep standing until the nation itself followed him into freedom. Your mind is the factory of every future you could possibly create. The thoughts you allow to occupy it are the blueprints, the plans, the architecture of your destiny. And yet most people let weeds grow where they could plant seeds. They allow fear to dominate where courage could lead. They let doubt, envy, and weakness camp in their mental space instead of building fortresses of belief, clarity, and focus. If you do not train your mind, the world will do it for you. The advertisements, the news, the gossip of the people around you, all of it is fighting to program you. If you do not seize the reins, you will be programmed into mediocrity. That is why you must take this weapon and sharpen it daily, cut away weakness, discipline it with purpose, and forge it in the fire of relentless training. Discipline begins with awareness. Ask yourself, what are you feeding your mind each day? What books are you reading? What conversations are you allowing into your ears? What thoughts are you entertaining in silence when no one else can hear them? Because the mind is like soil, it doesn't care what you plant. If you plant poison, it will grow poison. If you plant greatness, it will grow greatness. Henry Ford once said, "Whether you think you can, or you think you can't, you're right." That was not poetry. That was law. Ford trained his mind to believe he could put the world on wheels when the world laughed at him. He trained his mind to believe when no one else would. That is the ruthless training you must embrace, the training to believe so completely in your vision that no ridicule, no setback, no storm can tear it away from you. But belief alone is not enough. Belief without discipline is like fire without control. It burns but it does not build. Discipline is the forge where belief becomes reality. Discipline is rising before the world stirs, while others sleep in comfort. You are sharpening your mind, feeding it, commanding it. Discipline is when temptation whispers comfort, but you train your mind to choose growth, to choose the harder road, to choose the path of power instead of the path of weakness. This is why so few ever rise above average, because average people never train ruthlessly. They live as if life is practice, not the real game. They let their emotions, their distractions, their excuses steer their mind like a leaf tossed by the wind. But the greats, the legends, the ones who carve their names into history, they seize control. They cut away distraction, they discipline thought, they harness focus. They understand that a mind untamed is a life wasted. So the question is, will you sharpen this weapon? Will you take hold of the most powerful force you have been given and wield it ruthlessly in the service of your purpose? Or will you let it remain dull, let it corrode in the fog of mediocrity, and die with your potential still buried inside you? Because make no mistake, the world bows to the one who commands his own mind. The mind is not built in a day, nor is it sharpened in comfort. It is forged in the daily battles you fight when no one is watching. It is carved by the choices you make in silence, when no applause is waiting for you at the end. Think of a blacksmith striking steel over fire. Every strike shapes the blade, every strike removes weakness, and every strike transforms ordinary metal into a weapon of precision. That is how you must train your thoughts. The fire of your trials is not there to destroy you, it is there to remove the excess, to burn away the lies, to reveal the edge you carry within. People walk around dull because they refuse the fire. They run from discomfort, from discipline, from the sharpening that would make them unstoppable. But if you face it head-on, if you walk into the furnace with courage, you will come out wielding the sharpest weapon a human can possess, a disciplined, unbreakable mind. Understand this truth. Discipline is freedom, but undisciplined thought is slavery. A man who cannot control his own mind is a prisoner inside his own skull. He is chained by distractions, enslaved by fear, ruled by impulses, and dragged in every direction by the winds of circumstance. But the man who rules his own thoughts rules his world. He does not wait for conditions to align, he bends conditions to his vision. He does not pray for easier circumstances, he prays for stronger focus. That strength, that discipline, that ruthless training of the mind, is what separates the great from the forgotten. When Napoleon was exiled to Elba, when he had lost his empire and his throne, it was his mind that still terrified Europe. When Lincoln was called a fool, when critics mocked his every move, it was his mind that carried him through the storm. When Edison failed 1,000 times to create the light bulb, it was not his hands that kept him going. It was his mind, his refusal to surrender to defeat. And when Ford envisioned an automobile in every driveway, when people laughed and said it was impossible, it was his trained mind that cut through the noise and delivered. The battlefield is always inside before it shows up outside. A soldier trains his body, a craftsman trains his hands, but the man who conquers life trains his mind. How do you train it? By commanding it. By refusing to let it wander into weakness. By rejecting the poison of comparison, the cancer of doubt, the temptation of ease. You must tell your mind what to do as a general tells his army. You must order your focus, direct your attention, and command your belief with absolute authority. Otherwise, your mind will rebel, and like an untamed beast, it will drag you into the mud of mediocrity. And this is where most people fail. They believe their thoughts are random, that they are at the mercy of whatever passes through their brain. But that is a lie. You are not at the mercy of thought. You are the master of it. The mind is not a cage, it is a sword. It is not a storm, it is a compass. But only if you seize the hilt, only if you hold it firm, only if you train it ruthlessly every single day. Because the undisciplined mind will not serve you, it will betray you. It will whisper lies about what you cannot do. It will magnify fear until you stand frozen. It will tempt you with comfort until you decay in place. But a trained mind is incorruptible. A trained mind sees through fear like glass. It uses doubt as fuel. It turns obstacles into stepping stones. It refuses excuses like a king refuses the words of a fool. And when the world looks at you and says, impossible, your mind laughs, because you already know that impossible is nothing but a word for the untrained. So, train your mind with ferocity. Sharpen it with discipline. Arm it with belief. Guard it with vision. Feed it with truth. Challenge it with struggle. And never, ever, allow it to grow soft. Because the most powerful weapon you have is not in your hands, not in your bank account, not in your connections. It is in your mind. And if you master it, there is nothing, absolutely nothing that can master you. If you hand a dull blade to a soldier, he cannot win the battle. If you give a weak ship to a sailor, the sea will swallow him whole. And if you leave your mind untrained, the world will devour your destiny before you even take the first step. Your mind is the weapon, and every thought is a stroke of that blade. The question is, are you sharpening it, or letting it rust in mediocrity? Greatness is not stumbled upon, it is engineered, hammered into existence through the relentless conditioning of thought. Think of Thomas Edison, who failed over 10,000 times in his pursuit of the light bulb. Was he merely tinkering with wires? No. He was disciplining his mind to bend reality, to command persistence where the average man would surrender. Every failed attempt wasn't failure, it was a whetstone sharpening the blade of his mind until it cut through the impossible. But training the mind is not a passive ritual. It is war. You are at war with distraction, with doubt, with fear, with every whisper that tells you, you're not ready, you're not enough, this isn't for you. Those voices are not truth, they are invaders, and if you do not fight them, they will occupy your mind until you live as a slave to them. You must learn to stand guard at the gates of your thoughts. You cannot let just anything enter, because every thought is a seed, and the mind is the most fertile soil in existence. Allow weeds of fear and laziness to grow, and they will strangle every dream you have. But if you plant vision, belief, and discipline, your mind will produce fruits that others call miracles. Look at Henry Ford, a man with little formal education who was ridiculed, mocked, called foolish. He dared to envision a car for the common man when the world only saw automobiles as toys for the rich. They laughed, but his mind was not chained by their laughter. He trained it to believe what others could not yet see. He disciplined it to hold onto that vision through bankruptcy, failure, ridicule, and rejection. And because he trained his mind ruthlessly, the automobile industry was born. The world changed because one man refused to let untrained thinking dictate his life. Your own mind is no different. The truth is harsh but liberating. If you are stuck, it is not your circumstances, it is your training. The world is not unfair, life is not conspiring against you, opportunity is not hiding. What's missing is the strength of your mind to command those forces instead of being commanded by them. Just as a bodybuilder lifts weights until his muscles tear and rebuild stronger, you must lift thoughts of faith, vision, discipline, and persistence until your mind becomes unbreakable steel. And just as a warrior sharpens his sword daily, you must sharpen your thinking every single day, through what you read, what you repeat, what you allow, and what you destroy. Consider Abraham Lincoln. He lost elections, faced depression, endured heartbreak, lived in poverty, yet he trained his mind to see something greater than his current pain. Had he surrendered to the whispers of despair, America would not know him as one of its greatest leaders. His weapon was not politics, not money, not connections. It was his mind, disciplined to believe in freedom, in unity, in the worth of persistence against all odds. So ask yourself now, is your mind your weapon, or is it your prison? Are you sharpening it daily, or dulling it with distraction? Every time you scroll without purpose, every time you give in to fear, every time you let doubt dictate your decision, you are handing your weapon to the enemy. But every time you discipline your thoughts, every time you hold your vision steady despite the storm, every time you refuse to entertain weakness, you are training your mind into a force no man, no obstacle, no circumstance can defeat. This is not theory. This is the battlefield of life, and you are standing in it right now. The mind is either your greatest ally or your greatest enemy, and you get to decide which.